Hello, friends. Welcome to Investment Immigration Conversations. I'm your host, Carolyn Lee, principal and founder of Carolyn Lee PLLC, a U.S. investment immigration law firm dedicated to helping clients build their futures with investment immigration. And I couldn't be prouder to have our senior attorney, Lindsay Schoonmaker, join us today. Howdy, Lindsay.
Hi, Carolyn. Thanks so much for letting me join you today.
Well, you'll be doing all the work as usual. Um, okay, well, so today we're just gonna tread lightly on the ambient stuff, immigration news in the background affecting our clients and the EB-5 ecosystem. We're certainly feeling in our practice with our clients an elevated sense of concern. I mean, the word anxiety,
Uncertainty.
uncertainty, yes.
Mm.
This is really, really uh, creating this heightened sense of urgency.
Yes.
Right? And we're really, really
Hmm.
feeling that in our practice. So I hope the conversation we'll have today will just sort of, help smooth things down, just if for no other reason than for having a forum to talk about it. We'll open the floor and take questions. Really, there isn't anything concretely urgent happening at the moment. But let's just kind of start talking about some of the stuff and the happenings that we want to kind of talk about are F1 visas, students and EB-5 investment, and the gold card, what's happening with that line of news, and of course the EB-5 backlog to come. All of just saying it actually is making me a little.
Unfortunately, it also seems to be making my internet connection unstable. So if there's a pause, that's
All
why.
right. You know what? I think that is the universe
It
telling us
is.
all to breathe, you
Good
know?
advice.
Yeah, let's, if there's a patch of grass, open earth anywhere, take your shoes off, put your bare toes on the earth, just breathe. And you certainly have friends. And, kind of feel like this is an EB-5 shrink session. I don't know about you, Lindsay. That's kind of feeling that way for me, which I think is great.
Absolutely.
Yeah. All right. So, in terms of F1 visa students and those events, if I kind of think about it, it really students and the EB-5 green card to me kind of brings it all together because for so many investors, it is about their kids.
Right.
It's about, we're okay where we are. We've made it for ourselves. But for our kids, we want them to have the best that we can give them, the best in education, the opportunities, freedom to choose their way ahead. Um,
And, and work options after graduation that, open up more options for work.
That's right. It's
Hmm.
this desire to kind of open the world up for them as much as possible. And I think so when the news, hits like F1 visas are being revoked, and SEVIS records are being terminated. And the sense is, that I got, especially being abroad while this news was happening and then coming back as well, is parents really feel like, okay, we're sending the kids to school in the US, but they're in a good place. They're in a safe area, safe haven, they're in school, they're having fun, it's great. And then this is sort of this like rude awakening kind of feeling and this anxiety because what's most precious to you is over there.
Right.
And this stuff is happening that could hurt them in their
Hmm.
futures and what they're doing right now. And I think that's really been the heart of the anxiety. Would you say, Lindsay?
I think so. And I mean, it makes it so difficult to plan. A lot of the hurdles have been slowly overcome. So, there were the SEVIS terminations and F1 visas being revoked mid-April, but then a lot of them were reinstated after litigation. Harvard students were, told that they might be barred, but then there was an injunction in place, and that fortunately was confirmed yesterday as being upheld. So, it's that back and forth, and it leads to so much difficulty in planning what your next step is going to be, what next semester might look like. Um, and so
That's
I think that that's really difficult for people.
That's such a good point because we've had these conversations. NYU students, a couple, they were consulting with us about an EB-5 visa after their OPT and graduation. And then there were, one of them gets their visa revoked and SEVIS terminated and reinstatements being pulled.
Right.
And they were kind of heartbroken, disappointed, and planning on leaving, only to
But
have it
then,
be reinstated.
uh,
And so now what?
mhm,
And so yeah, I think that's another thing is it's getting so hard to plan
mhm.
with the whipsawing happening.
And then the other good news is that these student and exchange visitors visa interviews are being scheduled again now.
Yes.
Um, it restarted on June 18th, but then there's the flip side that it might be slower than usual because they say that they are going to do deeper dives into social media and online presence of students. And so that could slow down how quickly they schedule the interviews. And so, again, while it's good news that they're being restarted, it's hard to plan to know exactly when things will be scheduled.
Yes. 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 It almost feels like, well, we know this ride is a journey. It's an odyssey.
Mm-hmm.
But it's just like, okay, so now, we've got more water being dumped in the boat, and there's this, thicker fog ahead of us. And it's really hard. And it's happening so fast. I was like 1 a.m. doing my thing, and then I get a WhatsApp message from one of our clients in Singapore. It was like, what do you think of this thing? And I was like, what thing?
What thing?
And it's the F1 visa is being canceled. The interview is
Mm-hmm.
being canceled. So it's hard. It's hard to also stay on top of it.
It is, but hopefully, in good news, so far all of the stops have been restarted, and the process might look a little different, the timing might look a little different, but we've been navigating it, and it means that our advice has not changed significantly in, keep filing, keep making your planning, uh, do a concurrent adjustment when you can, and it helps to just keep pushing forward.
Yes, yes. And boy, the concurrent adjustment, I've said on so many fora, it's the gift that keeps on giving. It's like, when the F1 visas were being terminated, we were asking our clients, okay, so did you re-enter using your advance parole? Because if you did, your visa can be revoked away. It's
No problem.
okay.
Hmm.
Yeah. So yes, concurrent adjustment, which we still have, is a wonderful gift. Okay, so F1s, and I just want to take the opportunity to say we are still welcoming. We are a welcoming community, and we certainly are. And we're open to doing our best to, bring a measure of stability and support. And we have clients reaching us through WhatsApp, WeChat, emails, phone, and we got you. How about the gold card?
How about the gold card?
That's the question that we get from time to time, including from reporters. So what's going on with that? Well, I mean, the interesting thing, Lindsay, has been how much interest there is, like demand. I mean, I don't know about 1 million or whatever the number was. That's, but there is interest.
There seems to be a lot of reported registrations.
Yeah, well, the portal is open.
Mm-hmm.
And I've been on it. It does look nice. And I went in there, I registered for updates, identifying myself as an attorney. And so I hope that if there's, the next step on that, that will be notified. And that's just another interesting facet of what's happening in investment immigration today. And I think from an EB-5 advocacy standpoint, from the get-go, we've been messaging, this could be a fantastic program. I mean, as a sort of a fiscal conservative, I think reducing debt, fantastic. Let's do that. And if this is a way for us to do that, then, wonderful. And enriching the investment immigration landscape. But we just don't want, EB-5 and the reliance interests with all the EB-5 investors past and in the works. And with all the wonderful work that the program is doing, just let's let that go and have another program run parallel alongside it. I think that's all there is to say on that. Just staying watchful,
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah. All right.
Keep our eyes open.
Keep our eyes open, ear to the ground, finger on the pulse, et cetera, et cetera. So now the backlog, the EB-5 invisible backlog. And so, there's no question that it's coming. What we don't know is when, and just really everything else about it, including the ever frequently posed question, how long? And I just want to state for the record that I have been wrong. Let it be known. And
We're recording, right?
we are recording. We are recording. I know. Where are my kids? They're going to want to have this on their iPhones as well. This is just, you can't win with this because, so the data had come out. Thank you, AIIA, for your FOIA litigation and for making this information available and for getting this information. And so I printed everything and studying everything on my 16-hour flight to Singapore. And imagine just thinking that you have reached the conclusion, the wait is 28 years. And this is where I was.
Mm-hmm.
And I just did the arithmetic again and again. And so, in my desire to be like, share everything it's important to have everybody know everything let's, just get it out there. And in that spirit, I did share what I believed I knew, what I thought, could be. And I'm walking it back. I am walking it back. And who knows? That could be how it pans out. It could be nowhere near how it pans out. But see the last video with Suzanne Lazicki and me where we walk through the analysis and roughly the numbers and we really can't be flip about it, but very, very, very roughly, see the video, read the blogs, read Suzanne's blogs, study the spreadsheets, but it's coming out to more like 12 years for Chinese investors, 7 years for Indian investors, and 2 for rest of world. I mean, and maybe it is that simple. And maybe we're feeling like this is so overwhelming that we have to overcomplicate it to feel like we're getting at it.
Mm-hmm.
But and the reality is no one can know. These are now our revised best guesses. And that is all it is. But it does make me also think, one can be too conservative.
Mm-hmm. But it's important to have all the information available to you when you're making these decisions.
Yes, that's true.
And to think through what the different possible scenarios might be.
Yes, yes,
Which
yes,
is why it's important that whether it's the exact number of years or not, there are backlogs coming, right? And being prepared and knowing that and choosing your path based on all of the information you have available, even if it's uncertain, is still worthwhile.
yes, yes, yes. Yeah, yeah. I feel like at the end of it, the best thing we could do is try to isolate what we know
Mm-hmm.
and what we don't and what we're guessing on.
Exactly.
And to that point, I am in the middle of penning an article on that. It titled just that, what we know and what we don't.
That's great.
Yeah. So look out for that. That's coming. Um,
We do have a couple of questions from the audience. Would
all
now be a
right,
good time to look
let's
at
do
those?
it.
Okay, these are back to our topic of students. Um, Inquiring how deep the new social media scrutiny will be is, I guess, the first piece. And then what happens if the student is already accepted into a university, had their student visa approved already before this scrutiny? Will they be screened on arrival at the border?
Oh, that's a good. I don't think so, because this is State Department, yeah. Vetting.
So, and I mean, it's kind of a separate but similar issue that electronic devices can be searched at the border. Um, but the good news about electronic devices is that it's only the information on the device itself, not
Hmm.
cloud-based information. So one tip is to log out of any cloud-based sources at the border.
Ooh,
So that you do have to give your password you don't have to give your password for the device, but if you don't give your password for the device, you could be delayed or even denied entry.
okay. So it could be placed in secondary or refused admission.
Exactly. So it's generally a good idea to provide the password for the device so that the device can be searched and you can continue with your entry. However, you wouldn't have to log into apps at the border.
Mhm,
So
mhm.
anything that you're logged out of, things that automatically log you in, you should turn those off so that your cloud-based
That's fantastic. So
data isn't
practical.
searched. Yeah. But for the visa interview process, I think the answer to start is we don't know exactly how deep the new social media scrutiny will be, but certainly they're asking students to make their profiles public. And so they're searching whatever the public can see, whether it's through a Google search or social media searches.
Yeah, absolutely. And if we take what the executive orders have been about, it's been about political,
Mhm.
speech and in certain positions. So Um, I guess the practical advice there would be, just watch for that. Know that that could be the reason why the F1 visa is denied. I recall reading, Lindsay, I wonder whether you've run across something that suggests that, if you've had a post, but you've subsequently taken it down, that there may still be some residual traces of it that can still come up in this vetting process. Have you also read that?
Not in this context, but I do know that that is a thing, that it is
Possible.
possible, and certainly that data is still saved
Mm-hmm.
somewhere. Hmm.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So a time of caution.
Yes.
Yeah.
Um, Another question, how will recent changes impact students who are in their final year of conditional EB-5 green card?
Like final year, meaning like the last of two, presumably, the two initial 2 years.
That would be my read of this
Yeah.
question.
Well, so for folks, anyone who is in the, last stages before filing the I-29, which has to be filed within the 90-day window prior to the 2-year anniversary of your admission and conditional residency. So your initial 2-year CPR, conditional permanent residency card, is going to have an expiration date, count back 90 days from that. And that's the window during which the 829 petition must be filed. It can't be earlier than that because it'll be rejected but you won't know until sometime into the window. So you've got to make sure that you're like well within the window, but but timely. So what should you be aware of? Well, you're a student, but these things that we're talking about that affect F1 students specifically don't affect you because you're not in F1. So F1 visa revocations don't affect you. Your SEVIS I-20 terminations don't affect you. Vetting for social media at F1 visa interviews don't affect you. F1, J1, M1 visa interviews being suspended don't affect you. When I was traveling abroad, one of the sets of questions that arose was about, well, what about certain, news coverage comments that suggest that, even though I am a permanent resident or a conditional permanent resident, that, I may be deported. And it's sort of like the understanding, we're technocrats, right? We're immigration, EB-5, investment immigration technocrats. And so we don't, it must be said, when we hear when these events are filtered through a really dense mesh. But everyday people, especially folks abroad, get absorbing this news. They're getting it in this sort of bite-sized sort of, the 5-word version of it. And so what has translated down often is, can conditional permanent residents be summarily removed or deported? That's how it's being experienced. And the answer is no. Because there has to be a trigger, there has to be a reason, a ground of removability that's been triggered for that removal process to be initiated.
Hmm. I was reading an ALA practice guidance about the device searches, and there was a kind of a nice funnel talking about US citizens can refuse to answer questions beyond identity and travel details. It can cause delays, but as a US citizen, you're allowed to refuse to answer further questions. Lawful permanent residents cannot be denied entry, but they may face additional scrutiny in the process. And
Yeah.
then it's like a funnel. Visa holders may be denied entry
Oh,
if
I
they
love
refuse
that
to answer
image.
questions.
Right, because it's, in terms of your rights, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, there, it's a funnel.
Mhm.
Yep. Yeah, and it makes sense. I mean, we're advocates, so we want the sun and the moon for our clients for sure. But it's in every country there are rights and privileges afforded to citizens, and then there are diminishing rights and privileges afforded to guests. And so we certainly have that operating. But I think there are other these events are sometimes, I think, adding to the question of, are we still welcome? And, allow me to reiterate, yes, you are. You are welcome. At our house, anyway. Come on over. Okay. Well,
Lovely.
I somehow feel better.
Me too.
I
Thanks,
think
Carolyn.
calming presence, Lindsay. Let's go have an ice cream.
Oh, I love that idea.
Go out, have some ice cream, enjoy yourself, stay cool, stay well, and we will see you next time. Bye, everyone.